Who plays the most cupcakes in 2025? Well, we're going to look at the 10 easiest schedules in college football, and this would just be with the Power 4 teams, of course. We're not, obviously a team out of the MAC is going to have an easier schedule than a team in the Power 4. So we're only looking at the Power 4 teams. But yeah, we're going to look at the 10 easiest schedules based off of our formula. Man, this number 1 team, they have a very easy schedule. But let's just jump right into it. We will start with actually, we're going to have an honorable mention because there were no SEC teams that made it because if you play in the SEC, obviously you're going to have a tougher schedule. So no SEC teams made it, and now I think about it, there might not have been any Big Ten teams, but we'll see in just a second. But this team was very close. I mean, it came down to 2 teams, and so I just wanted to mention them, and that's Missouri. Again, obviously, if you play in the SEC, you're probably not going to have one of the 10 easiest schedules. But when you look at Missouri, honorable mention, you look at their non-conference, Central Arkansas, they play Kansas, who could be decent. Then they got Louisiana and UMass. You look at their schedule in the SEC, they avoid Georgia, they avoid Texas, they avoid LSU, they avoid several of the top teams in the conference. So this, again, not one of the 10 easiest, but definitely an easier schedule and the easiest schedule in the SEC. So again, it was very, very close when I was doing my mathematical formula with Missouri and our number 10 team. Just wanted to mention them. Shout out to Missouri for a very favorable schedule. All right, so now let's go to number 10, and that is Kansas. Kansas with a pretty easy schedule. And obviously, you're going to see a lot of Big 12 and a lot of ACC teams here just because they play in the 2 lesser conferences. Maybe we could have actually split this up and done the 5 easiest schedules in the Big 10 and the SEC, and then the 5 easiest schedule in the ACC and the Big 12. But anyways, maybe next year we'll do something like that. You look at this schedule, Fresno State in the non-conference. They do have Missouri in the non-conference. They've got a Power 4 opponent there. And again, Fresno State's a respectable Group of 5 team, but they just really luck out in the Big 12. That's why this one is on the list. I mean, they don't play Arizona State. They don't play Iowa State. They don't play BYU. So those are arguably the top 3 teams in the Big 12. So that's where they lucked out. It is a very favorable schedule for Kansas in the conference, and they've got the 10th easiest schedule overall. Let's go to number 9 now. Arizona State. Arizona State with a pretty easy schedule as well. Northern Arizona and Texas State, easier games in the non-conference. Then Mississippi State, probably the worst team in the SEC. Yeah, they do play a Power 4 team, but again, one of the worst teams, one of the worst Power 4 teams. Although I was actually just looking at Mississippi State, and I think they have a chance to be a lot better this year. Their schedule is brutal. If you missed it, we did the 10 toughest schedules yesterday, and they were, I think, at number 2. So, yeah, they've got a brutal schedule. So the record might not be better for them, but if you look at their actual roster, I think they actually will be decent this year. But anyways, that's your non-conference. You look at who they play in the Big 12. They do play Iowa State. They don't have to play BYU. They do play Baylor on the road. So, there are some tricky games in there. But overall, again, when you do the math, use our formula, they come out to number 9. Number 8 is BYU. So there is BYU. You got Portland State. And then you got Stanford in the non-conference. Again, one of the worst Power 4 teams, East Carolina. So kind of it was very similar with Arizona State and BYU. Both teams do play a power opponent, but it's one of the worst Power 4 teams, Mississippi State and then Stanford here. You look at their schedule in the Big 12. You've got Iowa State on there, but no Arizona State. No Baylor. So a pretty favorable schedule for them in the Big 12 as well. Let's go to number 7 now. That's going to be Louisville. Louisville comes in at number 7. They've got Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, and Bowling Green. And then you got Kentucky, who is going to be, maybe the worst team. Again, when I was looking at Mississippi State's roster, I haven't fully looked at Kentucky's yet, done a deep dive, but perhaps Kentucky will be the worst team in the SEC this year. So that's something there. That's interesting. But you got pretty easy non-conference schedule. You look at how they play in the ACC. They do have Miami on the road. They do play Clemson. They do play SMU on the road. So I'm actually surprised. Again, this is a formula all based off of numbers. I'm surprised they made this list because they do play some of the tougher teams in the ACC. I guess it's just because you've got 3 pretty easy games in the non-conference. And again, Kentucky could almost be viewed as like a Group of 5 team because they just don't expect to be very good. So when you've got 4 easier games like that, and then they do have some easier games in the ACC. Cal is at home, Boston College at home, Virginia at home. So a pretty favorable schedule for Louisville. Although, again, when I look at their conference schedule, I don't think they have one of the easier conference schedules in the ACC. But overall, again, number 7. Number 6, California, another ACC team. You got Oregon State, and you got Texas, Southern, Minnesota, and San Diego State in the non-conference. They do play Minnesota. Oregon State would have been a tougher game a few years ago. Now, they do have Minnesota. That'll be a pretty tough game in the non-conference. But they have a pretty favorable conference schedule. Look at their conference schedule. They're not going to play Clemson. They're not going to play Miami. They do play Louisville and SMU, but overall, pretty favorable. And Cal coming in at number 6. Number 5, Illinois. So we do have one I mentioned earlier, couldn't remember if there was a Big Ten team. Yeah, Illinois, your lone Big Ten team on this video, on the top 10, because they've got a really easy schedule. And I talked about this before on the projected record video. They're projected to have one of the top, 5 records in college football just because of their schedule. You got Western Illinois, Duke, and Western Michigan in the non-conference. Now, Duke is another team that, as I do more research, I'm actually a little bit higher on them. But still, that's a very winnable game. Then you look at who they play in the Big Ten. You got Ohio State. Yeah, that's going to be tough. But they may be favored in every other game that they play. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Penn State. They don't play Michigan. I mean, it is a really, really favorable schedule in the Big Ten. Again, I don't think Illinois is going to be a top 2 team in the Big Ten, but they might finish in the top 2 of the standings just because of their schedule. And this is one of the easier schedules, and by far the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. So that's why I say watch out for Illinois. Their schedule gives them a great shot. All right, we got Houston up next. I think this is going to be, the last 3 are all in the ACC. So this is going to be the easiest schedule in the Big 12. You got Stephen F. Austin, Rice, and Oregon State. So they do not play a Power 4 team. Of course, Oregon State used to be, and I'm sure when they scheduled that game they were. But very easy non-conference schedule. You look at their schedule in the Big 12. They do have Arizona State. They do have Baylor. They play some of the better teams. No BYU, no Iowa State. This is a very favorable schedule for Houston. And Houston, again, with the easiest schedule in the Big 12. Now, our top 3 are all in the ACC. We'll start with number 3. How about Bill Belichick's first year at North Carolina? He gets a very, very, very favorable schedule. You've got TCU in the non-conference, so give them that. But then it's Charlotte, Richmond, UCF. Actually, they play 2 Power 4 teams, but UCF not expected to be great. And then TCU, kind of an average team out of the Big 12. That's actually surprising that North Carolina was in the top 3. Maybe it's the conference schedule. They do have Clemson. Oh, yeah, but they don't play Miami. They don't play SMU. They don't play Louisville. So outside of Clemson, very favorable schedule for them. They get to play, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake Forest, NC State. Some of these teams could be better than we expect, but, I think Syracuse is going to take a bit of a drop this year. I don't think that'll be too tough of an opponent. It is on the road. I'm not saying they'll win, but that's not going to be a horrible matchup there. NC State, maybe they bounce back this year. So this one could wind up being tougher than we think right now. It really just depends on if some of these teams improve, because I do think there are some teams on this schedule that have potential to actually be a good bit better this year. So interesting to put North Carolina here at number 3, but that is where they came out, again, in the formula. Number 2, Virginia. Virginia has a very easy schedule. You look at Coastal Carolina, William and Mary. They have, sorry to say Stanford, the non-conference. That's not a non-conference game anymore. You got Washington State in there. So one of these games, I can't remember which one it was, but I think one of these ACC games is actually not a conference game. I can't remember which one. Maybe the NC State game, maybe the Stanford game. I'll have to look into that. But, you look at the schedule and they don't play Clemson. They don't play Miami. It's another team that has a very favorable schedule in the ACC. So Virginia set up for possibly a very solid year this year, but it's not quite as easy as our number 1 team. The easiest schedule in the Power 4 in all of college football, that number 1 easiest schedule is Wake Forest. Take a look at this. And, I did a video on the projected records for the ACC, and I got a bunch of comments because I said Wake Forest played 2 FCS teams, Western Carolina and Delaware. And, of course, Delaware, this is a team that is moving up to FBS. So, I slipped my mind when I was doing the video. But just because they have the name, that they are technically in the FBS now, that doesn't mean they're just magically going to be a lot better. So this is still going to be not a very tough opponent. So Kennesaw State just became FBS recently, then Western Carolina, Delaware. 3 really easy games there in the non-conference. Then you got Oregon State, used to be a Power 5 team, when we had the Power 5, of course, but they're not what they used to be. So, I mean, this is by far, I think, the easiest non-conference schedule in all of the Power 4. And then you look at their schedule in the ACC. They don't play Clemson. They don't play Miami. They don't even play Louisville. So it's just a really favorable schedule. Now, Wake Forest, I don't think is going to be great, so it's still going to be tough for them to do a whole lot this year. But the schedule definitely gives them a chance to have a bounce back. Wake Forest with the easiest schedule in the Power 4. Would love to get your thoughts on these schedules. Maybe there's an easy one that you think I should have put on the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.